Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio. And today, for our book club, we're talking about Natalie Lloyd's 2022 award-winning book, Hummingbird. It is a young adult novel that features several poetry sections. It is heartfelt and magical. Samantha and I were just talking about it. We were both brought to tears by it. Yes.
They're very different reasons, but yes.
I feel like similar-ish reasons, but you had a more specific reason than I did.
That's fair.
Yes, which we will talk about. You also listened to it via audiobook.
Yes, read by Natalie Lloyd. And I don't know if this is somewhat autobiographical in that, like, she wanted to be on the stage as well or not, which is a part of the story. Because she did a great job. She did a great job in doing voices, which I was very surprised by. And she did... She's from Tennessee, Chattanooga, so not too far from us. Hello. But like, yeah, her accent was on point.
Yes. I'm kind of jealous in that because there are a lot of fun sayings in this book.
So good.
And as the date of publication suggests, spoilers throughout. If you're interested in reading it, the story follows Olive Miracle Martin, a 12-year-old girl with OI or osteogenesis imperfecta. Before we get into the plot, I wanted to read a quote from the author. Like Olive Martin, the protagonist of Hummingbird, I was born with a brittle bone disease called osteogenesis imperfecta, OI. OI means my bones break very easily. Like Olive, I used a wheelchair or walker throughout middle and elementary school. In most of my childhood photos, I'm wearing a cast. And like Olive, the word fragile is one I've heard used to describe myself and my body for as long as I can remember. During middle school, my self-esteem got extra wobbly because of how I felt inside my body. I think this is when I first realized how different my body looked from my friends' bodies. They grew taller, but I stayed extra short. Their legs were straight, while mine were bowed and scarred from surgeries. I didn't like being different. Sometimes I hated being fragile. I'm fully aware shaky self-esteem is not, and maybe has never been, an obstacle for every reader who has OI. I believe a person's experience with disability is as unique as that individual's heart or fingerprints. Yeah, so let's get into the plot. 12-year-old Olive has been homeschooled her whole life due to her OI, but she is determined to go to Macklemore Elementary, where she believes she will meet her BFF, her best friend forever. She lives with her mom, stepdad, who is also the PE teacher, Coach Malone, her stepbrother Hatch, her uncle Dash, and her dad Jupiter, who kind of lives in a yurt, is separate but together with the family. She manages to convince her family to let her give Macklemore a try, which is sort of a castle, by the way, the school.
It seemed very fantasy.
Yes.
I loved it. I loved that aspect of it. But yeah.
Yes. The description of the library, I was like, oh, yes.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Things aren't exactly smooth sailing for her, though. Her caretaker, the person assigned to look out for her, Miss Pigeon, is overbearing. And repeatedly, Olive encounters people who call her fragile. Then she meets Grace Cho, an aspiring entrepreneur, and learns the story of a magical wish-granting hummingbird that pops up every couple of decades. Olive becomes determined to find the hummingbird to make a wish to strengthen her bones. But she is not the only one looking for the hummingbird. So she makes a pact with Grace to search for it together and not hold it against each other if the other person gets the wish. They have an actual contract. They draw up. This leads to a friendship with the librarian, also the past discoverers of the hummingbird, and her stepbrother Hatch, who wants to use it to wish to find his lost dog. Yes, lost dog, notably, because you can't wish life or death things.
Yes.
Throughout all of this, Olive makes friends, especially in the school theater troupe. She auditions for an Emily Dickinson play that I was like, whoa, okay, and gets the role of Bird of Joy, but also gets the understudy role for Emily Dickinson. Things go wrong, though, when she falls off the stage and breaks her leg, preventing her from searching for the hummingbird, which is on a timer. Basically, it's like by the blue moon, on the night of the blue moon, you got to find it. So, and it also prevents her from being in the play, or at least that's what she thinks. She truly wishes Grace and Hatch the best of luck in finding the hummingbird. Then she has a conversation with her grandfather, who also has OI and who has been like throughout the story mentioned, knows a lot about birds, who made a wish on the hummingbird last time it appeared. He convinces Olive that she doesn't need the hummingbird to do everything that she wants to do. Her and her family go to watch the play, and the director asks Olive to take on the role of Emily Dickinson, since the lead, who was her daughter, had mono. Olive does and nails it, of course. The hummingbird appears to her, and she realizes that while her bones are fragile, she is not, and wishes for Hatch to find his dog. She meets Grace after, who pretty much got her wish without the hummingbird, and was like, I'm good. And Hatch reveals that he wished for Olive to realize how amazing she was. And then the dog, yes, Biscuit, appears. Olive writes poetry for the first time in the poetry book gifted to her, and happily ever after, it seems. It ends well. It ends on a high note.
Right. Well, I think like one of the things about this book, because, you know, with a lot of young adult novels, it could go pretty sad pretty quickly. Stuff like one of the things that you and I talked about when we were finding books or movies specifically for Disability Justice Month, we wanted something that wasn't dour, I guess is the best word. We know, again, just like the author said herself, everybody's experiences are different, especially when it comes to their own disabilities or whatnot. And she like talks about her own desires and such. And we know that that's the case in reality, that people do often see this as just a part of who they are. And it's not a hindrance necessarily. It's just something that they've always had, that's always been a part of them. And it's nothing worse or better for anybody else. And we wanted something that was just like a story, essentially, that celebrates that, the normality of having disabilities. And that is cool in itself. And I think for this book, they did a great job. Natalie Lloyd did an amazing job in making the story as like kind but honest as it could be. And when I say kind, I really expected Mean Girls coming in with the Madisons.
Yes.
And I was like, oh no. But it wasn't. I was like, oh, okay. Cool. You know, even the most problematic people were the people who were just like a little too caught in infantilizing her because they were scared, which is, you know, reasonable when you're not aware of what something is or how something can go, or what incidents can happen, especially in like a crowded place. You know, we see an incident that does happen. But then I loved each of the characters. They were so different, and they had such vibrant personalities of their own. Between Dylan, I love Dylan in himself, like just being who he is, and him. Because at the first, when Grace was trying to find the hummingbird, she was trying to recruit him, and Dylan was much like, no, I can do this on my own. I know I have the talent. I don't need a hummingbird. I was like, okay. Oh, okay. And Olive, who's like listening in and then eavesdropping, she's like, yes, like she really wants to shout, because like that type of attitude is so amazing. And I was like, yes, go. In the end, Grace found that out for herself and wanted to be an entrepreneur, so she kind of figured that out later as well. And I loved the relationship of her family. Such an amazing supportive family. Like, I was like, between the good relationship of the father and the mother and the new husband, like, it was like, okay, y'all are actually cohabitating. I like this. And the like strength they give their daughter without being over the top, like with being parents. For Coach Malone as well. Like, he was still a parent, caring parent, kind of naive. Really, really too involved in like the whole locker room thing was like, ew. Why would you do that to her?
Yeah. He's basically like, go be in the locker room and like make friends, which is the most awkward place.
And she's like, I don't need to change out, so I'm just sitting here watching people get changed. I'm not going to start introducing myself while someone's getting into their, like, I'm like, that's so awkward. Why? What?
Yeah.
What made you think this was a smart idea? But even Hatch, and then Hatch seemingly having the normal life and being all good, but talking about his invisible disabilities and then like really seeing that. And then about his dog Biscuit. And yes, this is where I cried. I had a moment of like, no, please tell me he's okay. Like I was not good. And then he reappears and I was not good again. It got me twice. Like I'm tearing up now as we're talking about it. I can't help it. Dogs, can't do that with pets with me. And then yes, I love this in my story once again is back to like, man, I wish I had this as a kid because this would have made my imagination run wild.
Yeah.
This level of love and like depth. When I read the description, when we were talking about this, I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is intriguing because it's kind of does remind me of the old stories where it was all tragic. They mentioned the bridge to Terabithia a lot. That scarred me to the point that I think I've deleted some of the information about that. But then with the minute her whole like search for BFF and talking about Anne of Green Gables. That's the first thing that popped in my head. And she mentions it. I was like, of course, there it is. And I love that. And y'all know I love a good retake. I love a good redo. And this was so perfect in that her relationship with Grace, which was so sweet and so loving. And that Grace was not about her disability. It was more about like, let's go. You have this smarts and I have this smarts and we got this as a combination. We are unstoppable. It was just, so yeah, for anybody who is a parent or maybe some of our listeners who are younger, this is an amazing book to have as part of your like imagination reread. It's so sweet.
It really is. And it's, I think going back to what you said earlier, Samantha, it does a really good job of, it is a very supportive, nice, kind take that also deals with like there's a lot of a lack of accessibility, but then they find a way around, like her people in her life help her find a way around that. So it's like, it's not unrealistic in that way, but it's just very, very kind. And also she's just determined. She's going to find a way. And I love the magical element of it too. And I love how it's treated.
Yeah. It just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. And then it's like,
I love it. And
I love it too.
What? Therapy sloth? Yes, please. Where's mine?
Then you've got like the library is so eccentric because you've got like therapy animals and it just sounded
exotic
so cool.
Therapy animals, y'all.
Like
the llama is probably
sloths.
not exactly there, like exotic, but still.
Yes.
I was really hoping, and I know we're jumping all over the place. I was really hoping that they would have an excerpt about the ghost.
Yes, there's a ghost mentioned in the library. And I was also like, ooh.
This ghost gonna pop up. I want this.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get that deep into the lore, I guess.
No. Well, maybe next time. Maybe next time. Well, I guess we should get into the themes. Starting with, disability. And I love this quote. This comes on early because Olive is just immediately a very unique and fun personality. So here we go. In case you're curious, I have two wheelchairs. They both have names, Dolly and Reba. Dolly's my sparkly, custom-fitted, go-to set of wheels. I hot-glued my name and rhinestones on the back. I maneuvered Dolly's wheels myself, and gosh, I love the way she glides. Reba is motorized with a maroon seat and shiny red rims that sparkle in the sun. Contrary to popular belief, I don't hate my wheelchairs. They help me do whatever I want. I consider them fine chariots. So don't feel sorry for me on account of the wheels.
Right. I love it. It's hard talking about that you can speed anywhere. And I think we've talked about that before. With our feminists around the world, we had the activist who she was talking about her wheelchair and she loves it too. She's like, I can wheel where they can't, where they have to walk and I'm much faster than them. I was like, yeah.
Yes.
That's nice. And I did her whole style. I love that she has a style and she was every bit head to toe with her sunglasses or her heart sunglasses. Like that was her personality, not the wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just love that was the descriptors and it was so vivid.
Yes. And a reminder, this was the first time she'd been homeschooled. So this was the first time she was going out. So she was like choosing her clothes based on like the glitter and all of the stuff. She just had such a clear sense of fashion and who she was. But yes, she did have the supportive family. She does. And when she first started at the school, it didn't go quite as well. And she had encountered instances of ableism before, including early on. The book starts with something that happens at church, which is also something that we had discussed in previous book picks for Disability Pride Month. So here's a quote. "That girl is fragile as a falling star." And that word fragile does keep coming back and does keep appearing throughout. But then this woman, while they're at church, comes up to Olive and kind of like
it's supposed to be words of prophecy.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be prophetic. And I think in itself, like, we know if any of us from Southern churches know this woman who comes in and prays over you and says whatever may be the problem is going to heal you. And I have a feeling she's a nosy butt that thinks she knows everything. I'm just saying. And this was one of the moments where Olive was just sitting by herself and her parents weren't around. And the woman actually tells Olive, "I believe God wants me to tell you that your life will not always look like this." "Makes sense," I said, sinking back against my chair as far as possible. For some reason, I felt smaller on account of the way she looked at me. Or maybe it was the way she was talking to me. My voice came out small too, so I cleared my throat. "I mean, I'm only 11. Life's bound to change considerably." She smiled and said, "I mean, you will not always be in this terrible contraption. Someday you'll walk. You'll jump right out of this chair. I believe God means to heal you." And y'all, my accent came out just now.
It's fitting. Fitting.
I think it's because I listened to it, and that's how I heard it. Anyway, also, again, I have seen these types of people who came through and saying, "I believe God wants this for you. God wants that for you. Let me lay hands on you and heal you," which is kind of one of those conversations when we have about church in general. Like, thank God for those who have their own faith and beliefs and aren't discouraged by this. And as she became discouraged, but she had people around her who was like, nah, there's nothing wrong with you. Don't listen to this woman who is somewhat out of her element, and really just being a nosy person and not realizing harms like that. We've seen women like this and just saying irreverent things as well as just very nosy, non-helpful things for people that has nothing like to do with that person who feels like they need to speak on based on the Lord. It's just based on their own ableism, and we know that. And oftentimes we just wish we could just cover their mouth up.
Yeah, I mean, so many times it's about the person wanting to feel better about themselves, and not at all about the other person in question who didn't ask for this.
Also, it makes them feel like they're closer to God, which is a whole different level of competition. You're like, why?
Yeah. But so that happens, and that's when her mom like rushes in and is like, "Oh, don't listen to her. It's not right." And then that's when Olive is like, "I really, really want to go to Macklemore." And her mom says, "All right, you write me a sermon."
No, that was Olive's own plan. She was like, "I will write you a sermon and I will talk you into this." And this was during when all of a sudden large white mass, and whether it was like snowflakes, some of them said snowflakes, some of them said sleet, some of them said fog came in, and her Uncle Dash had already been like, "Oh, there's something happening, there's something in the wind, there's something coming," very mystical. So you get this idea that this book is bigger than just a tale, in which they talk about how this has happened before, and yes, they're actually feathers, but the feathers dissolve like snow. They leave like traces behind. She says glitter, like leaves a little glitter on her, and that this has happened every few years, and its significance to the birds, because birds is a big part of the story, because she is an avid bird expert, as with her grandfather, and she knows a lot about birds. So this was a huge point. So she was like, yes, something is in the wind. It's happening. It's time. This is a sign. And she does her sermon.
She does, and she convinces them to let her try Macklemore. She is so excited. This is the thing she wants. I did love that it was the BFF she was most excited about. That was great. But yeah, she gets to school. She has the greatly named Miss Pigeon, who is supposed to kind of be her guide, but she is like way over the top. Thinks that Olive is fragile, can't do anything. People avoid her because they're nervous. Because like the whole school has been told Olive's coming in, she's fragile. Hatch also didn't want her to go, although you later find out there were other reasons why, but he was worried about hurting her and looking out for her. So here's a quote. People have called me disabled before. I call myself disabled. It's not a bad word, and it feels as neutral to me as having brown hair. It's one part of who I am, but her tone made disabled feel different and not in a good way, more like a scratchy sweater way. I don't want special treatment. I just want to be myself.
Right.
Yeah. And this was after a pretty disastrous
an awkward
lunchroom.
moment.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when I thought it was going to be a mean girl session. And I was like, oh no. But like instead it was kind of an ableist moment of like, leave her alone. I'm like, oh, that's not the way. That's not the way to go. But okay. And then Miss Pigeon, she had such high hopes because she seemed cool the way she was dressed. But then she just ended up being like even more, which is understandable when you don't know. And the parents had come in with like a pretty big speech to prepare everybody. So it kind of went beyond. So the introduction is a rough start.
Yes.
And then here's another quote. It's because fragile is how people always describe me. That or short. And I wish they'd see other things like my dark hair or my heart-shaped sunglasses or even my dress, which is full of mushrooms and garden gnomes. It's so jazzy. But what people see is the fragile part. It's strange how my bones are inside my body, but they're still somehow the first thing people see. Fragile is what I'll always be. I get that. But I am 1,000 other things too. I'm whole constellations of wonders and weirdness and hope. Which is why she was so sparkly.
Yes. In those like short sentences, you learn so much about her character. And it is like, she's got a great sense of fashion. She's just really interesting. Also, she has like a best friend who is a pelican.
Felix, which I was like, what is that?
He's
What's
such a
with the fish
comedic.
sticks? How much fish does she buy?
I don't know, but he was a comedic presence. I could tell if this was like a movie because he's constantly like running into the window. He's fine, everyone. But
she always says, she actually says that to me. He's fine.
Yeah.
Just so y'all know.
He's all right. I will say, so when we were picking this book, we were worried about the wish and that the wish would be, I wish I didn't have this disability. And so when I was first reading it, I was like, uh-oh. But it turns out all great. And there is a great quote from the author about having this when you're younger, having this kind of back and forth, especially when you're starting school. And there's just some things that because of accessibility or whatever you can't do. But there were instances of internalized ableism, especially after transitioning from homeschool to public school and seeing how people treated her. There's a scene in the locker room where I guess the dudes had like made a list of the hottest girls in their grade and had, and Olive sees it and here's the quote. This is what pretty looks like, I realized. According to the list, this is number 1 6th grade gorgeous, and it's the opposite of me. And it was Madeline number 1. Because, they go by numbers.
Because 3. I guess there's 3 or 4.
There's 3. There's
okay,
3.
Okay.
But the third one didn't seem into it.
No, third one was just caught up in it. She's like, I don't want to be.
Yeah, she's like, actually, I go by Madeline. I think that they all go by Maddie, but she went by Madeline. Yeah, but it was nice because in the end, there is this really powerful moment where Olive has this sort of refrain, my bones are fragile, but I am not. And we'll talk about that more later. But
I've been calling them Madison, haven't I?
Yeah, I mean, their name. Yeah.
Whoopsie. My bad.
Okay.
I confused them with Madison, but I think they are Madeline.
Yes,
and Maddie.
I believe they're Maddie's.
But they go by Maddie, and so in my head they're Madison, which is not the case. Yeah, and I think once again, it's a good point about talking about the fact that she didn't think any of this until other people told her what she couldn't do. And especially with the play, like she really wanted to be in the play, but the person who she really hoped would be one of the more like not open, but like just people who would just treat her normally because she seemed eccentric and out there, was one of the ones who told her how many things she couldn't do, including saying, maybe we'll put you in something. We'll let you be a tree. Which was like,
Yes.
And then
later she's like, maybe you can like help direct. Or
right. And then like the kids are the ones that's finding solutions. They're like, we can make a ramp. We can do that. That's really easy. And other kids will be like, yeah. She's not the only one who's going to need to like ramp. That just makes sense. So like it was interesting to see, but this change of attitude came much later because of what other people told her she couldn't do.
Yes, absolutely. She didn't have this in her head until she went to this school and people were like treating her differently. I also wanted to touch on a point. I didn't have this in here originally, but because you brought it up and so many things I saw brought it up, Hatch does have an invisible disability, and a lot of people wrote about how that meant a lot to them reading about that when he opened up about it, because he was sort of the closed off stepbrother and you weren't really sure why, and then you find out like he's kind of lying to his family about what he's involved in, and then you find out why, and he's talking about like why he always wears the same hoodie, and it's a very sensory kind of thing. And then he's talking about his dog, Biscuit. But yeah, a lot of people wrote about how that was also a really impactful thing for them.
Right.
To read.
And then her assumption that he was okay and he just didn't like her. Like, and vice versa. Like he compared his to, he's like, you don't need this. You've got a great family. You have like you have a handle on your disability. I don't, type of thing, conversation. You don't need this, which I do. Please give it to me. And it was all based on the dog.
Yeah.
I'm okay. But like, I thought it was a great turn because she saw this person who she thought really had it all. And then like he really thought she had it all. And then that conversation that really brought them closer together and how close they become and how they open up to each other was just beautiful. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah, they do get a really close relationship and it's really rewarding at the end.
Yeah.
Oh no, Samantha.
I'm okay.
Also, as you mentioned, change is a big theme in this. There's a lot of like changes on the wind. There's a lot of imagery around birds, finding your wings. Grace makes bird wings, which I would have loved when I was a kid. But also, just all of going to school and having those new experiences in life. There is a theme of spirituality. Here's a quote. Mostly when I pray, I picture God holding my heart up very gently to his ear, like one of those big fancy seashells with an ocean sound inside it. I've got 1,000 tiny oceans inside me, and I think God listens carefully to every crashing wave, all the fears and hopes, even if he doesn't answer every single prayer. I think he keeps my heart safe.
That was one of my favorite lines. She did such a great job with that.
Yeah, she did. But it was so nice too with the themes of magic, and I kind of liked how the magic was exciting, but it was sort of accepted. Like it was just like, yeah, that's what's happening.
It was secondary, like as if it was normal.
Yeah, yes. And I love how when they talked to the three people who had gotten the Hummingbird wish last time, there felt like there was something magical about each of them, but then it sort of turned out that no, they were just living their lives, and some of that worked out better than others, but it was neat, like seeing what's her name, Nestor, with the apples, and she has that dance. Like it just felt so.
Yeah,
I love this.
Yeah, I feel like Luther really like. I love this again. This is kind of one of those things again when I say I wish I had this as a kid because it's got such a great vibe and depth. But like when they talk about the fact that he loved thinking about the childhood, when they said you are part of the Bloombird society, like she's like, you're a part of this, and he lights up because it reminds him of such good times with him and his brother searching for the hummingbird themselves and then making those wishes. Like, it was that kind of level of magic that I see in this entirety of the book because of the search, but because of the self-finding.
Yeah.
And I think that was the same thing for Martin and Luther, obviously, and Luther like losing his brother and waiting still for his brother, which, yes, has also got my heart to come back. But like that level of his acceptance, being this title as the grouchiest man in town,
yeah,
to realizing that he's just gone through a lot of loss, and that be reminded of those good times of his youth. I'm like, oh, that's magical. Why? And then you also see the memories when they go and find the other birds.
Yeah.
The memory birds?
Remembery birds.
Remembery birds. I know remembery birds. And they got to see a part of that as well. They saw them in the youth. They saw the dog biscuit and so much more. So like it was like, I love that this magic is also kind of that spirit of childhood as well.
Yeah, like making those memories and looking back on them, and the important thing being the people you were with when you made them.
Yeah.
And also Luther was the one that helped Grace get her wish, her dream.
Yeah.
So I really loved that. And yeah, the Remembery Birds, I love for listeners who've never read this. Essentially, so they have what they call the Judy Blume. It's like a friendship group, and they're collecting friends throughout, and Olive calls her grandfather, who knows a lot about birds, and the call is breaking up, but she can hear him say Remembery Birds, and then they go and find them, and they see all of these memories. It's a really beautiful scene, and that helps them kind of figure out where they think the hummingbird will be. They get a lot of different clues, and that makes sense at the end. But I love that too, kind of the mystery of it. Another theme, writing and creativity. Here's a quote. "That's one of my favorite feelings in the world. Pen to paper and a page full of words. I could write 1,000 things in my lifetime, plays and poems and short stories and songs, and never, ever get sick of the way words feel when they spin out of my soul." So she's a very creative type.
Yes.
If it's not clear by wanting to be in the play and just having all of these ideas, she was very smart when thinking about this hummingbird. But also, yeah, she loved to write, and she loved to write poetry. And there, as I said, there is a lot of poetry that she writes throughout the book.
And I will say, like, there's a lot of like kindred spirits, if she were to name them that. And then one of them is her first teacher that she meets, Mr. Watson. And here's a quote, because he's also just as passionate as she is. He says, "We believe 3 things in this class, Olive. First, we believe that miracles surround us every day. We take time to notice them. Second, we believe every person deserves respect and kindness. And third, we believe an ink pen is a direct line to a person's heart. Your words are a kind of magic you carry inside. That's why we write each morning to turn the magic loose." So he had given him an assignment. He was the one that told them the tale of the hummingbird.
Yes. And I love the scene where he like excitedly is like, "Chicken eggs are hatching. A miracle is happening." It's so sweet.
And I believe this could be very real in Tennessee.
Yeah. Yep. I believe it too.
I say this from a country school in Georgia.
As we've already discussed, acting is a big thing. Olive really, really wants to be on stage. It did make me laugh because I did, in fact, play a tree when I was in elementary school. I was tree number 2. Number 2, Samantha. But
So
that was due to my poor acting ability and not ableism.
I mean, it's better than being in high school playing the black servant girl with a really bad antebellum accent because I was the only minority. She would never say that. R.I.P. my drama teacher, who was actually a really great drama teacher, and I loved her to death. But that microaggression kind of casting was like, hey, and if anybody ever finds those tapes and calls me out on it, I followed the script as it was written, and it was really bad, and I feel bad about it now.
Oh, no. I have those things, too. But yes, in that like
It was not
war
good.
of what was worse, you won.
I mean, look, when I think about it, I'm like, man, I suffered through some things in high school and I really thought I was doing well. I took that as a compliment. I should not have.
Oh dear. Oof. Well.
Anyway, going back.
Yes.
The tree is better.
The tree was better. The tree was better. Also, there is a kind of a theme of using art as an escape, and inspiration throughout. There's just a lot of references and things that she loves. She's very nerdy in what she'll bring up, which I, adore.
Yes.
Family. Family was a big theme.
Yeah.
Here's a quote from her mom. Your name was a hallelujah for the whole world to hear, because no life should be a whisper. Remember that, okay? You're not a miracle because you have brittle bones or because you use a wheelchair or walker. You're not a miracle if you don't. You're a miracle because you exist. Everybody is. And that's when she's talking about why Olive's middle name is Miracle.
Yeah. And then there's a whole breakdown because when Olive decides that she was going to make a wish for her bones to be stronger, she knew because of the comments like that, her mom would be somewhat disappointed. So there was a conversation between her because she finally tells her dad, Jupiter, that she was looking for it, who told her mom, and mom was like, what are you wishing for? And she told her very hesitantly because she had a feeling, and this was the response. I don't want you to feel like you have to live in a world where you wish part of yourself away. Maybe that's not what your wish is about. I hope it's not, because all of you is wonderful. So yeah, this is when she doesn't tell her mom because she was kind of scared of the reaction. But her mom, knowing who she was and knowing she's had some difficulties with school, already knew.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end, the grandfather we've been hearing about all this time shows up. And here's what he says, quote, here's what's going to happen, kiddo. As you get older, your world will get bigger and bigger, and you'll realize there's way more that you can do than you can't do. It just takes time for us to see it. Birds are born with wings. The rest of us have to find our wings as we go. And you will, Olive Miracle. You'll find them and you'll fly. Very moving. And I do think, like, going back to the remembering birds, like, those memories are present throughout too, of how they impacted people's lives and how through generations they impact people. That was a pretty big theme. And then lastly, friendship. Again, I love the search for the BFF was like Olive's number one goal. That's what she was so excited about. And going back to a point you made earlier, Samantha, here's a quote. But you know how Diana has Anne in the Green Gables books, or how the girls in the Babysitters Club all have one another? That's what I think is missing in my life. I'd like one true BFF to spend my time with.
Oh, so sweet.
And it's really fun in the beginning because she's like, maybe this person is my BFF.
Yes, she started talking about maybe I could be with the Maddies, or maybe I can hang out with Dylan. He's cool. Yeah. Her interaction with Ransom is also very sweet as well. She accidentally pells him in the leg with her chair. She's like, "Oh no, are you okay?" And he was very sweet. Gives her a pen. Talks about how he has an element of magic about how finding random things, and he feels like he's supposed to give them to people.
Yeah.
So cute. And then having to dance with her. She wants to dance with her. I love their friendship too.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really cute. And she accidentally introduced herself as New Olive to him.
Yeah.
And that was very fun.
Which sounds like, again, something I would do.
Yes. Yeah. And I did like at the end, because I feel like, it was becoming clear as the story progressed what I don't even want to say moral of it was, but kind of what generally happens with the hummingbird. And so I like at the end that they pretty much all gave up their wishes for each other.
For the other.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest thing is I like that the hummingbird really, they say that you'll only say in the legend, you'll only say what's on your heart. So you can't even really choose, because each one of the people that they had talked about, one said, I just want to be happy. And then he realized that he was with, all these things. The other one was, I just want a friend. And it turned out to be his wife he was with.
Yeah.
The other one, all those things. And she realized that she was okay, she's like, she was thinking about Hatch, as well as Hatch thinking about her missing out on her opportunities because she wanted to be on the play. He's like, I wish that you would be happy on the play, at the play, and being successful. Were you able to do this? Like, it was so cute because it was in their heart, it's just genuine, kind love for each other.
Yes. Yeah. It was very, very sweet. I definitely got teary-eyed.
The dog.
Yeah, the dog came back, everybody. And then also, we've been talking about this, but I just want to reiterate it because I loved it. I did like the whole, I love when Grace was like, actually, I figured out, you know what? I can do this without the
I can get my mentor. I didn't need that. He asked me as I was going.
Yeah, I really liked it. And I think sometimes I would be like, that's what you're wishing for. But when you're a kid, you know, of course. That's success. That's something that you really want. And I really loved that. I loved how it kind of became like, oh yeah, I figured it out.
Yeah, it was very, again, like all of these things ended up being exactly what they need without knowing that they needed. I love the whole hummingbird kisses and the way that she spoke out. She's like, I am fine being me. She speaks, my bones are fragile, but I am not. Like, and they're like, wait, is this a part of the play? Does Emily Dickinson say this? Wait, what? But that's what she keeps saying out loud to the hummingbird, and then truly wishes for. You know, she realizing that she is not fragile, and it was very sweet. It was a very good feel-good. Every turn of it was like a feel-good with a little suspense, and I could definitely see this being a show.
Oh yeah. I could too. Again, like the setting of the school, even the town.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I loved it.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, probably one of my top 5s out of all the books that we've read. And we've read a lot.
We have read a lot. It was just like a fun, unique, mysterious, friendship heavy, family heavy. Like, it was just, a lot of things that I really liked. Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt healthy. All the relationships felt healthy, even when they weren't communicating.
Yes. Well, listeners, if you have any thoughts about this, or if you have any suggestions, please let us know. You can email us at stephaniemomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at StephAneverToldYou. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite show.